people have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Let's Take 5, the podcast where we pick a cinema legend and take 5 of their films to highlight their excellence and range. My name is Austin Luger.
My name is Ray Martindale.
And today we are covering Charlie Chaplin. This is part 2 of our 5. Last week we covered The Gold Rush. Next week is Modern Times. After that is The Great Dictator and Monsieur Verdoux. And this week we are covering perhaps his most acclaimed film. Is that fair to say? City Lights.
I think that's fair to say, right?
Yeah, I mean, I often see it in, best films of all time list. So that's a pretty good thing to say.
What's it about, Austin?
Oh, let me see here. This is about the Tramp, who, instead of being out west, as we saw last week, this time he is just in a city. He meets a poor, blind flower girl and is going to try to get money for her surgery so that she can see again, and also help her out with her rent. In trying to do that, he tries to get some work. He meets a millionaire who has a drinking problem and a suicide problem, and goes boxing, tries to do anything he can really to survive and to make money in a way that's not too doesn't kill him, basically.
Yeah, it's the movie kind of works as like a series of vignettes where with the through line of the flower girl going underneath it. And a lot of those revolve around this millionaire who he meets down at the docks about to kill himself one night, and the Tramp sort of prevents that from happening. I'm going to come out right with the heavy hitter right now. The millionaire plot is like the funniest thing ever. So if you haven't seen the film, basically this guy, millionaire, when he's drunk, recognizes and remembers the Tramp, and he's his best friend and he loves him and he would literally do anything for him. The moment he sobers up, he doesn't remember him at all. And it's not a matter of like, okay, now I recognize class. I'm a millionaire. He's a tramp. Get this guy out of my sight. No, literally, he doesn't have any recollection of his events with him. And it's kind of funny because obviously this is heightened and things would likely not exist this way in real life. But it's just the type of heightened, like, realism that I think a place where you're going to run a pantomime vignettes through line through like really, really works, because his relationship not only to the flower girl but also to the millionaire are equal parts important, I think, in this film in a lot of different ways, because most of the humor, if not all the humor, comes out of that part of his life with the millionaire, whereas the serious and the reflective and melancholic undertones come with the flower girl, and it really makes equal parts both in this wonderful pie of like perfect cinema that is City Lights.
Well, what's interesting is that I've seen the film several times. It wasn't until what you said right there that I realized kind of a major element I think Chaplin's going through here, which is how we look at the poor in kind of modern society, because we have the flower girl who literally can't see him. We have the millionaire who is his blackout buddy. He can sometimes see him. Mm-hmm. And there's so much about people trying to push him out of the way in a way that the Tramp isn't even fully understanding. I really liked the beginning of this movie because, as you said last week, Chaplin keeps giving the Tramp such wonderful introductions. Mm-hmm. And this is a big gala that's about to unveil this wonderful statue, and they take off the curtain, whatever.
Drape, yeah,
and the Tramp is lying on top of it, sleeping. That's where he slept for the night. I love to imagine that the Tramp was looking for somewhere to sleep. He's homeless, and he found somewhere they thought would be out of the way because it's underneath a tarp, right, so no one would be bothered by this.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he's not. And then the beauty of all this is that the Tramp is never someone who is, like, making excuses for himself. He wants to always do what is expected of him. So during this whole gala, he keeps trying to, like, be formal while he keeps, like, stumbling on, still stuck on the statue. It's wanting.
Well, he's like a picture of courtesy.
Exactly.
He's always propriety and like courtesy and manners are very important to the Tramp, but his outward appearance would suggest otherwise.
And when he's at the big party, keeps burping, right? Mm-hmm. Doesn't want to. He's trying to be very like polite.
Well, he swallows a whistle.
Right, that's right. He follows the whistle and he keeps
The guy's trying
whistling
to
when he's breathing.
play the violin,
Yeah.
right? And he gets the hiccup, so he hiccups, and every time he hiccups, the whistle goes off, which is, I think, the oldest joke in the book, but, you know, this movie came out in 1932, so...
It's a new book.
I think it was a new book at this time. It's quite funny. But he's always tipping his cap to people. Like, he always does this. And he did this in Gold Rush, too, but, like, he's always really, really well-mannered. The Tramp exists as this thing that a lot of people in society wouldn't want to associate with this because he's a, you know, vagabond and he's a, you know, he's just a bum.
Hasn't showered this year.
Hasn't showered this year. But outside of that and what that might suggest, he's actually like really nice, courteous individual who just doesn't have any money, right?
And that's so much of the brilliance of this, because with the millionaire, in the Jekyll and Hyde situation, the drunk Jekyll
he's
loves,
great.
Appreciates him, and
So funny.
does not see any sort of class. He sees a fellow man in this struggle. I guess the sober Hyde just doesn't give enough patience for that. But the constant throughout all that is the fucking butler, who is there both times and doesn't like him.
Yeah, he's trying to throw him out always.
All the time.
It's great because, like, these guys become such good friends that they sleep in the same bed together. The guy wakes up the next morning and sees the Tramp in the bed. And it's like, what the hell is going on?
I often, suicide humor is such a hard line to do. Boy, this movie works. Because
he only wants to kill himself when he's drunk, which means he has no memory of it.
Well, it also it shows something that Chaplin wants to look at about. This is the richest character we've seen in 2 films, and he is so miserable.
Yeah.
That his subconscious is, like, constantly unhappy. Mm-hmm. None of the really rich people seem that happy. The most wonderful people are the Tramp and the Flower Girl. Right. And half of the millionaire.
Well, I think another thing important to remember is, well, at least to me, and I did think about this. So the Tramp is trying to make money to give to the girl, or try to get money to give to the girl to get an operation to fix her vision. But he's also, at some point, he's actually trying to get her to save her place, save her rent, save her house, because she gets sick and she's unable to work. Mm-hmm. So they're going to not make rent. And when I say her, I mean her and her mom or her aunt or grandmother or something, whoever she's living with at the time. They have more than he does.
Oh, yeah.
And he's trying to keep them in their situation, which I think that says something too. Like, I don't want you to end up like me,
right?
And that's really understated, because I think from the outside, because they are poor, and from the outside looking in, you can see these people as being on the same level, but in fact they're not. The Tramp is below them.
Yeah, they have a home.
They have a home.
They have chairs.
Right, exactly. Did you think about that while it was going on?
I was like, they were talking about like what they can do to kind of like make amends, but I didn't think about that fully, because like, they're trying to still be comfortable.
Sure.
And that's the horrifying like spiral of poverty. That's what kind of causes many things. You can sell things. You won't be able to sell them for what you got. You're still going to constantly be in this hole. And it was so interesting to see, like, especially looking at, this is the 30s. The economy is in a curious place, for sure, in America. Is that what you can do in just a reasonable thing of, like, the Tramp isn't being picky. He's happy to do whatever. The only thing he's really, like, one part he makes actual demands is during the boxing match, where he just doesn't want to get clobbered.
He just doesn't get beat up.
Yeah.
He shovels horse manure during this, too. Like, he's doing anything. That money's to go directly to her.
Yeah, none goes to him.
Yeah.
And there's something just really interesting about that. And, I don't know, when he kept doing all this work, it reminded me so much about, like, On the Waterfront. This is working class. This is really working class trying to make ends meet. And that's where you see a lot of working class being manipulated through corruption out of desperation.
And it's also interesting when you think about, like, the Tramp through economic times in America. Like, the character predates the Depression, but during the time where City Lights come out, that's in the heart of Depression.
Absolutely.
It's 1932. The stock market crashed in 29. So from the gold rush to now he is even almost more iconic and unfortunately more of a symbol of, economic strife going on right now anyway. And the way people view class and those lines probably are getting blurred a little bit because, a lot of people are losing money. But in returning to what you're initially saying, I think it's important to think like he is doing this for a girl who was nice to him maybe only because she was blind.
Yes.
And could not see what he looked like. She is under the impression in the film that he is a millionaire. Mm-hmm. Like, she gets under that impression because he gives her that impression. He's not fine. He doesn't care to break that impression. But he takes money from the millionaire to give to her. Now, he asks for the money. It's not like he steals it from the millionaire, who is more than happy to give it to him when he's drunk. Mm-hmm. He doesn't care.
Well, there is this interesting element that it's kind of been in a subconscious of societies for so long, is that the rich and powerful are often good. I mean, it comes from, I think, the idea of, like, royalty, of, the king and the queen, they have all the riches and they're going to be just rulers and such. So we just kind of keep thinking, like, and hoping that, oh, yes, this is the millionaire who's going to help me, the flower girl, and whatnot. That's not always the case. It's not always power and success does not exactly mean generosity or intelligence. It's everybody is different, and just because you are poor doesn't mean you're bad, doesn't mean you're rich, you're good, and that's the wonderful blending of this movie. It's so many different aspects that are just I really like. I wanted more of this guy. I like the boxer who made the deal with the Tramp and then gets the telegram saying, "Cops are on you, get out of there!"
Yeah,
and then runs away.
So this is probably the most famous scene in the film, right? I mean, that and the ending.
The ending.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of people have seen the Charlie Chaplin boxing match that comes to this film, and I think he did something like this on a short maybe before too.
I'm not expert on his shorts,
Yeah.
but I mean, the choreography of this is just so perfect.
So it's a boxing match. He's trying to box for money, and it's a winner-take-all pride fight. So basically what they were, or prize fight, so they were going to somehow split the cash, I guess, because they were going to...
They're going to rig it.
They're going to rig it, yeah, it's going to be a draw. But that guy has to leave the match that Chaplin's going to box because, the cops are onto him. So now he has to box someone else.
Who's actually good.
Didn't
make a deal with him.
who gets in a fight with the guy that just won the fight in the locker room and knocks him out. So the guy ends up boxing. While he's walking to the ring, some fan kind of leans over and he knocks out the fan.
I mean, there's such it starts to keep getting crazy, but I just love the very opening moments of the fight when the referee. The
referee, who I think is played by the same actor that played The Millionaire. I think they're the same guy.
Oh, really? That's so interesting. Yeah.
I might be wrong about that, but they look identical.
He kind of keeps bouncing around to kind of watch the fight, but the Tramp keeps perfectly, almost like a mirror, bouncing behind him, so he can't be seen.
And any time the ref steps out of the way, the Tramp lands a punch.
Yeah.
It goes on for a long time. It's a good match. The Tramp does lose the match eventually.
Yes.
As he does, as it were. But it actually, he hangs in there for a while, and I think that it also shows, I mean, the way it is now, we get the luxury of hearing the music and everything with it. It really, syncs to the music. The music's very important here.
I don't know which score is currently on the Criterion Collection, but I mean, a lot of these theaters would have
an
the
organ
sheet
player,
music and the organ player.
Right.
Because of how good they are, obviously theater to theater.
Right.
And sometimes I think the sheet music don't always make it.
Right.
It's just something bland. But no, it is...
but the music's so
score.
good for the score for that, and I know Chaplin did the score for these movies too.
Yeah, because... Of course he did.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, I think he edited them too. I mean, the auteur theory wouldn't be invented for 20 more years, but it's him. Yeah.
We were discussing, and we may have mentioned this on the podcast, but there are, and we certainly will again in the wrap-up again, we were talking about the Mount Rushmore of films and or people that would make that Mount Rushmore, those four people, and Chaplin being on there. And I do think we mentioned that, but specifically, I think the Chaplin from this movie. Like,
Yeah.
I know it's the Tramp, and I get that, but like to me, this sort of
Are you
embodies.
saying the stone face would be the exact last frame of the movie of him, like
Yes,
biting his thumb?
Yes,
Yes.
That's literally exactly it. You're naming it, and part of the reason there is because of the ending of this film. So he goes to jail, right? Well, you take it through. I don't know if I want the responsibility. Okay, so he goes to jail and he comes out of jail, and while he's in jail, the money that he was able to give her, she's able to get the operation and see. But anyway, so he's out of jail. He's walking around the streets, and some kids start picking on him on the street and stuff. And he goes by a flower shop, and he recognizes the flower girl in the window. She can now see, so there'd be no way where she would recognize him and whatnot. And then he comes out, and she gives him a flower, and when they touch hands, she's able to remember what his hands feel like, and she recognizes him, and she sees him for the first time for who he is. And he, gets embarrassed and bites his thumb, and she says, "You," like, it's you. And there he is, and that's the last frame of the film, leaving sort of this intentionally sort of ambiguous ending, not ambiguous in the way that does she recognize him or not, because she does, but is she happy that he is that man that was nice to her, this Tramp? And I don't think she is. And the reason I don't think she is because it sort of plays into the pathos and message of this character that he's never able to break the mold. I think that's kind of the point. I mean, he does in the Gold Rush, he gets rich, but he still trips over himself and falls over stumbling or whatever. He's still a disappointment. I don't think she's going to love him in the Gold Rush. But it is left to interpretation. I mean, you can decide one way or another. I just find that what makes this character so great is he's allowed to be both funny and tragic. He's both things. None of those of which I find consistent with getting the girl.
I think, I've seen this film a couple times. I keep changing my mind about exactly what her thought process is. I mean, brilliant actress, by the way.
Yeah.
Virginia Cheryl. There's something very important, I think, about having the film end on a relative close-up of the Tramp, and not a two-shot, not either of them. It is just him, and the happiest face you've seen of him the whole movie, perhaps. And
Maybe ever.
Yeah. And it means something in a way of, like, the story ends right there. It's the exact moment. This is a happy story. Because right this moment, the Tramp is seen by her, and that made him really happy.
Right.
And that's where the story, it ends in that millisecond. It's very likely that she is going to, like, awkwardly say thanks and maybe never see him again.
Yeah, I mean, she's successful now, but
Yeah.
based on the way it looks, she's running like a big,
Yeah.
like flower shop and whatnot.
It is, so he's able to achieve his goal, and that's something very interesting because you talk about this kind of constant rut that he's in. I mean, the money comes from the millionaire.
Right.
He still goes to jail because it's all stolen, whatever. But
He didn't steal it, but
They
think he
yeah.
stole it, right? And the millionaire can't say otherwise because he doesn't remember who he is.
this reminded me of a movie that you will never guess I'm about to say. 12 Years a Slave.
Okay.
12 Years a Slave is based off the actual true story of this incredible man. And when people first saw the movie, I'm going to spoil the end of 12 Years a Slave. It's called 12 Years a Slave, not 13 Years a Slave. And the guy wrote the book. He lives. He stops being a slave. But the way he's able to get out of slavery, because he was a free man who was put into slavery, was from the help of a white farmer. So really, when I first saw the movie and didn't realize it's a true story, like, after all this bullshit, it's just, this random white guy gets him out. Yeah, because slavery was happening right now, and when the system is so much against you, you need allies who are able to help. That way, stronger things will be built. Everything that the Tramp did to get money on his own kept being, he kept losing. It's very interesting that the millionaire was able to give, $22 plus the surgery money? That's it. That's all he needed. Mm-hmm. And that's still the way that you can get financial success, because it's still so damn hard to get out of this. Right. It's just so interesting, and kind of he went through this, Homer-like odyssey to get to that maybe $30, and
it wasn't even for him.
No, he's still poor.
Mm-hmm. So it's weird because it's you look at it from the Tramp's perspective, it's a happy ending. From the viewer's perspective, who has the context of the situation he's living in, and also has the privilege of not being the Tramp.
Yep.
We're allowed to be sad by this ending too.
Yep.
This ending, and I can't remember who did it. A famous film critic wrote an essay on it. I can't remember who it was now. It may have been Roger Ebert. I'm not sure, but said that the final 5 minutes of City Lights may be the greatest 5 minutes in cinema history. We're talking about a movie that's made in 1932. So.
And also 5 minutes with no jokes in it.
Yeah, no jokes.
I mean,
he's getting picked on. It's funny, but it's also like sad. Yeah, because they're not. These aren't jokes. These kids are just being cruel to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's different with The Millionaire. All the jokes are like accidental, but here, these kids are being outright cruel to them. They're spitting on him. But
yeah, that's the beauty of the Tramp, and it's something that Chaplin was so smart about. I mean, I know a bit about his successes. I know a bit about his less than good parts of his past. But I'm really curious to know about his full story, because this is, like you said, one of the richest guys alive.
Well, yeah, he signed a $500,000 contract in the 30s or 20s, and that type of money then, I mean, he might as well have been worth $100 billion.
Yeah, made his own film studio. Yeah. Full creative control over every part of a film, that sort of thing. I don't know. This is a guy who's actually really, really poignant about the lower middle class in a way that not a lot of people who own a film studio are.
Well, I mean, he was. I mean, if you talk about the finer points, I mean, he was accused of being a socialist, so he had opinions on economics.
Yes, he does.
Which, I mean, you may agree with that, you may not agree with that, but that's what his opinions were. Mm-hmm. And really that part of him, that idea, that sort of anti-American attitude, wasn't really brought to the forefront until later in his life.
Right.
Particularly during The Great Dictator, when he gives a speech that could be seen as, anti-American in some ways. Granted, it's a humanitarian speech, but if you're on a witch hunt, you're on a witch hunt. Now, but when you look back at it's kind of obvious, right? I mean, this is the Gold Rush, now this, and then Modern Times 2. These are movies that are, have a lot of commentary on economics and social class and
absolutely
several of these things that clearly Chaplin himself had huge opinions on as well. And it's pretty on the nose obvious at this point.
But do you ever feel it's preachy with these past two films?
Well, I mean, it doesn't even have the luxury of being preachy because it's
silent.
It's silent.
But like storytelling preachy.
No, I don't think so. I think that, like with any story, it's structured in such a way that the character is what's important. The situation he's in is superfluous because it changes every film. But
the Tramp isn't political.
The Tramp itself is not political, right?
He's not actively political.
No.
His goal is for...
Maybe in The Great Dictator, which is kind of like a half a Tramp film.
Right.
If you count The Barber as a Tramp.
Which is Tramp
debatable.
sequel. Yeah, we'll get to that in a few weeks.
Yeah. But no, I don't think he... And it's not political to say I don't want to get killed, which is what The Great Dictator is. But nevertheless,
and also,
you're right.
The goal of Gold Rush, right? I don't want to get killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In some regards. But he is he is literally risking his life to make money.
Sure.
And he's poor.
Yes.
So I don't think so. No, I don't think it comes off as preachy. If I thought it came off as preachy, I wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
And I don't think the films would ever be popular because certainly if they came off, if they thought there was some iota of some socialist agenda in these films, they would not have been popular then.
Well, something.
And you're hearing from a total anti-socialist right now.
Right.
So if there was someone that wouldn't have liked it, it would be me. And I don't see it. I think that it's not a bad idea to want to help people out and want people to rise above their own social class.
There's a really wonderful film that I adore. Since I'm going to talk about the ending of a film, I won't say what it is, but it has been covered on the Immortals and may or may not be on the front page of the website. But it's this really brilliant Hollywood film where it's about someone who thinks that the people in poverty want to see stories about them and the struggles and the horribleness, and they want to see that representation exactly depicted that way. And throughout the story, he comes to discover that is their life. That is not... They don't want to escape their life to see an exact mirror like that.
Life, sure.
And that there is something very important about joy and humor and escapism. And I think Chaplin nailed that more than almost anyone else, where anyone of any economic status can love and perhaps relate to the Tramp in a way you go, oh man, I know how tough that is, but because his situation is often silly heightened and the world's a bit sillier, you can...
he does it with humor.
Yeah, you can relate in a really just funny tale of hope.
Right. The minute you start to feel bad for the Tramp, he makes you laugh.
Yeah.
And I think that is definitely by design. I think Chaplin was humor first, but humor has that prefix there of humanity, and that's definitely in the character as well. He's a human being. If he wasn't, we wouldn't laugh at all.
Yeah.
Now, in this particular instance, though, not only do I not think she noticed him because I think it fits the actual pathos of the film to her, or she's sad that it is him, but also that's the type of movie I want it to be. Not because I'm cynical or anything like that. I just feel like it's more poignant that way. I think it makes a broader statement if she doesn't, or if she is disappointed in what she sees. Because nevertheless, he's excited that she can see him. So this is like a favorite film for you, right?
This is one of the greatest films I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, this is yeah. I mean, it's something where I'm excited to rewatch the next three, but this is something where the brilliance of the comedy of Chaplin is in its richest story, and the most. I hate people saying things have heart, but the most romantic, the most humanistic, and I mean, I really like The Great Dictator. We're going to have 2 weeks, but this is one of the finest comedies you can ever make, and he did it.
Oh, I don't. And the thing is, I don't view The Great Dictator as a comedy. So,
right,
and I know like the whole Waking World really kind of does, and I think a part of that is because it's like Chaplin. It's like, well, it's like Stephen King. Every book he writes ends up in a horror section. It's like that's not a horror bottle, but
right.
But I mean, certainly there are tons of elements of comedy in The Great Dictator, but I don't think that movie's all that funny. But I think it's great. Mm-hmm. Like I think it's an amazing, incredible film. But I think that's drama first, comedy second, and I don't feel like that's the case here. But it certainly has a lot of flair for the dramatic. Anyway, that about wraps us up.
I think it wraps us up.
I didn't pull out my outro card here, so say something about Charlie Chaplin real fast.
Charlie Chaplin, he's pretty good. I'm not going to lie. He's a good one. Yeah, if you have not seen City Lights and you think that we spoiled the ending, the thing about all 5 of these films is that even if we talk about a comedy scene, unlike... If I say that Peter Venkman gets slimed by a ghost in a hallway, you can probably picture that if you haven't seen Ghostbusters. You can't picture the boxing scene based on what we said.
No, you can't.
It is a work of physical art. Yeah. So,
boxing scene, and then like another scene that I love is the party scene earlier where he actually throws a cigar on the one woman's, and there's like a chair swap. It lasts like 15 seconds where people keep getting their chair pulled out from underneath them, but it's never anyone doing it maliciously. It's people pulling a chair they think is theirs. Oh my god, it's so funny.
Also, the first night with the millionaire, he just keeps trying to kill himself more. Yeah. You think they were a good time, he looks away, he finds a gun in the one.
So anyway, so that we'll wrap this up here. If you want to reach out to us, you can email us at let's take5@theartimmortal.com. You can leave a comment at theartimmortal.com. Look for us on iTunes. You can leave a comment on there as well. If you want to tweet at us, you can tweet at the Immortals Pod. That's our Twitter handle. And if you want to check me out, you can on Constant Diversion. That is my YouTube channel. So
I am also found more at theartimmortal.com. Plenty of articles there, but also a ton of podcasts. Yesterday's Immortals podcast, where the five of us review the 1001 movies, albums, songs, food, children's books, and TV shows you must consume before you die. We reviewed the random selection of All the President's Men, which haven't recorded that yet, but I'm very looking forward to rewatching that movie. No particular reason. And there's a song, Rock of Ages, which is pretty fun. And watch me get really angry about Smallville, because City Lights is better than Smallville. Is that fair to say?
yeah, come to find out.
And also, Ad Absurdum still has their monthly episode about war games, which is really, really cool. And next month, they're going to be discussing the HBO season of Westworld. So that'd be fun for your legal takes on pop culture. That's it.
That's it?
We did it.
All right. Well, we'll catch you next week when we review Modern Times.
All right, goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.